That is today. We're going to talk a little bit about Passover since we just had Passover. Did I cover about the name and prayer and stuff like that last week in class?
I think so.
And okay, because I wanted to make sure y'all understand what's going on with the name. I believe I did. We're going to discuss a little bit today about what a covenant is. We're just going to review, because there's a deal in the Zohar I'm going to read about, and God remembered Noah, what this whole remembering means, what he's every time, and he remembered Abraham, and he remembered Moses. How could somebody that knows everything be so forgetful? Okay? Come on in,
How's everybody doing?
Come on in, brother. Figure out. You make a call right on the table.
Any path you take, we'll make room for you.
Yeah.
Bruce is coming later on, isn't she?
Yeah, but she'll come
Yeah,
in.
y'all can just move
she'll
around.
come in and pull a chair up.
Yeah, we can sit Teresa right here.
She got that little stool out there.
Yeah. Well, and there's chairs in that other
She'd be
room.
a teacher's pet with
So,
a stool.
so to understand what remembering is, we have to understand what a covenant is, and we're going to tie that into Passover, and then hopefully I'll remember all this, what we're going through, and then we're going to tie it in to what the next 49 days are of reading the Omer. And Darlene sent a email out about an app that is that I downloaded on my phone. It's called My Omer, and you can it's day to day, and you can just flip through and read it every day of what's going on. It's really handy. Teresa has some.
She said that was good. Teresa said that's based off the book, right?
Yeah.
Based right off the
Right.
book,
Based
and
right
she
off the
said
book.
it's very
That's
good.
where I got it. Was he
Yeah.
sent the email out to
So-
people that gets newsletters.
So
Simon
okay.
Jacobs.
we will we'll get started here,
That's good. She said she
and
liked that.
Yeah.
today and so we'll cover a little bit because I want to talk some Torah, and then we're going to discuss our movie. You know, so without further ado, today we get to study Torah for the sake of heaven. And one thing I would like to apologize to everyone, that we've never done in this class. And it hit me a while ago in the bathroom. Every time we've said our prayers, and every time we've dedicated the Torah to something, what have we left out?
Amen.
No. We're leaving something out. We need to be praying for something.
For the sake of heaven.
Well, we do
Oh,
do the whole
okay,
class for
okay.
the sake of heaven. We've never prayed for Jerusalem.
Oh.
Yeah, you're right.
Next year.
And we've never prayed for Jerusalem. And I feel awful about that. That's the foremost thing you should pray for. So, without further ado, today we get to study Torah for the sake of heaven. We would like to dedicate our Torah class and our Torah study to Jerusalem.
Amen.
Brenda Waters, Garrett Mattlage and Jordan Mattlage, Cody Lovejoy, the patients at Texas Oncology, Brooke Gibson, Paula Navarez, Michelle Magnuson, Miriam's father, the people of the Ukraine, Jerry Seaman, Bria Wanstaff, Greg Davis and his family, Holly Harris and her family, R.C. Upmore and her family, and all the families in West affected by the tragedy, Steve and Debbie and Brandon Matus, the people in the tragedy in the mudslide, the people in the Philippines and in the Midwest, for Russell Kirk, for the people affected in the Fort Hood tragedy, the naval base, Moore, Oklahoma, and Granbury, Texas, for David Douglas, for Rosalind Body-Lease, for Noel Cordoza, for Bill Kirk, for Edward Hubson, for Natalie Compton, for David Scott, who, if you don't mind, John, I will tell the class that he has gone to meet the Father. To Levi Lester, to Brendan Givens, and to Nadine Freeman. Amen. Ruler of the universe and master of all masters, Father of mercy and forgiveness, we thank you, our God and the God of our fathers, by bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy work, and that you enable us to take part in the secret of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with such a big favor. That is the reason we plead before you, that you will forgive and acquit all of our sins, that they should not bring separation between you and us. And may it be your will before you, our God and the God of our fathers, that you will awaken and prepare our hearts to love and revere you, and may you listen to our utterances and open our closed hearts to the hidden studies of your Torah. And may our study be pleasant before your place of honor, as an aroma of sweet incense, and may you emanate to us light from the source of all of our soul to all of our being. And may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you revealed your wisdom to the world, shine. May their merit and the merit of their fathers and the merit of their Torah and holiness support us, so we shall not stumble through our study. And by their merit enlighten our eyes in our learning, as is stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel, open my eyes so that I will see the wonders from your Torah. Because from his mouth God gives wisdom and understanding. May the utterance of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. All right. Passover. Passover is once again the story of Noah and the story of the garden and the story of every other patriarch in some form or fashion, just in a different spot. All right? Now, how did they get out of there? What merit did they have? Because they had no merit. They couldn't do the things they needed to do. They couldn't keep the mitzvahs. They couldn't do all that. They weren't allowed to do all that. All right? So how did they get out? It is more so the theme of bringing them out, redeeming them out, to give them the Torah, than it is forgiveness of sin. It has nothing to do with that. All right? So, they had to have some kind of merit for God to allow them to come out. He couldn't do it without merit. Now, we know Moses was born circumcised. So, Moses is Adam in the story. The aspect of Adam, as was Noah. So the children of Israel are what? If Noah and Abraham and Moses are running the same stream here, what is Israel?
Or the people was the Hava.
The people are the Hava, the people are the house, the people are the ark. So we know that Noah, that the Klippa had come down over the Adamic Yesod, which is Noah's name, and that all had to be cut off. And the Shekhinah, which is Israel, which is the ark, which is the mother, which is the house, which is Rachel, which is all these other things, is what Adam is Eve, is what Adam is now going into Eve. Noah is going into the ark. And the Hebrews on Passover night were told to go into their house. Now, they were told specifically to kill the lamb, take the blood, and put it on the door of the house. right? And not to come out. Just as Noah was told, go into the ark, shut the door, I'll shut the door, and you don't come out. Noah was afraid to come out because he knew as the angel of destruction or the angel of death passed over, that as long as it didn't see him, he was safe. So let's take that story and let's lay it on top of Passover. There's several things going on. One, the Egyptians worshiped the lamb as a god. So they killed their god in front of them and ate it. Right? But they took the blood and they put it on the door of the house. That was the sign of circumcision. The blood on the door was the sign of the covenant. See what's going on? So, what was the merit that brought them out of Egypt?
Circumcision.
Circumcision. Yes, which is circumcision. The covenant is circumcision. So, if you're talking about a new covenant, a covenant is a brit. A brit is a circumcision. So if you're talking about a new covenant, Jeremiah 31 says that he's going to make a new covenant with Israel and Judah.
Mm-hmm.
With who?
Israel and Judah.
But it says with the house of Israel and Judah. I'm going to make it with the house. You see what he's doing there? So, the new covenant is not for the Gentiles. It's not for the Christians. It's not for anybody else. It's for the Jews because it is a circumcision. It's always been a circumcision. And when God says he remembers his covenant, all right, that's their merit.
Well, doesn't it say in 31, it says that it's a circumcision of the heart?
Well, it does. It says he's gonna have a circumcision of the heart, which is when Yesod and when Yesod and Malchut are now erect, and now it's Tiferet. What's Tiferet? The heart.
Yep.
See how we go from down to up? So we're running the center line of Yesod the whole time. It's always been that way. So, right now is a time of judgment because the Egyptians were judged, and then you have the whole water scene. They went through the water. The water was held back, hesed. When they went through, when the Klippa went through, the waters were rushing. Guvarot destroyed it. Same story, Noah's Ark. So then we get into counting of the Omer. So there's a lot of halakhic Jews and halakhic Gentiles that do not believe in Kabbalah. Kabbalah means the receiving. The receiving of what? The oral Torah. The Kabbalah is not a system so much. It's that you're receiving that soul of the Torah. That's all it is. So the oral has to be taught orally to receive it. Because you hear it. Hear, O Israel, because hearing is the first thing. It's not something you can see. Something you must hear. That's why it's the oral Torah. And God spoke creation forth. And he spoke to Moses. And he spoke to Abraham. And spoke. So it's a hearing thing. Alright? Now, I don't care what they say, because this week, if they're counting the Omer, they're all doing Kabbalah. Because the Omer goes for 7 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And in those 7 weeks, there are 7 days. So, they're the 7 days. within the 7 weeks. So it works like this. The first counting of the Omer started last night. Basically, you can do it today. And it's called Hesed of Hesed. All right, well, if this is Hesed, and we know the top is Keter, Chokhmah, Bina, then the first sphirot down beneath the mochin, or the brain of that sphirot, is Hesed of Hesed. Then tonight or tomorrow, you'll do the Guvarot of Hesed. And then you will do Teferet of Hesed. And then you'll do the Netzach of Hesed. Then you'll do the Hod of Hesed. Then you'll do Yesod of Hesed. Then you'll do Malchut of Hesed. Week 1. The second week, you'll come over here to Guvarot. And you'll do Guvarot of Hesed. The Hesed of Guvarot. The Guvarot of Guvarot. The Guvarot of Teferet, the Teferet of Guvarot. The Netzach of Guvarot. You see what I'm saying? So, I don't care if you believe in the Sephirotic tree or not. If you're counting the Omer, you're doing it. Because you're re-establishing Zer Anpin and the Nukva. You're re-establishing He and His name. Like I taught last week, it's all about He and His name. So I don't care how much halakha you have in you. And how much you hate the oral traditions and the oral Torah. If you count the Omer, you are immersed in Kabbalah. There's no way around it. And so what you've done is you have rebuilt Noah and the ark, Adam and Hava, Zer Anpin and the Nukva, the Shekhinah, and the Holy One of Israel. You're doing it. You're literally doing it. That's why it's important. So what happened was, on Passover, all the klipa was cut off of you. You were circumcised in a heart, spiritual, mind way. And now you are able to go in to each coordinate and fix it. And what does that do? It attaches you to Israel. And that's where you want to be attached to when the big flood comes. You want to be the Noga attached to the ark when the flood comes. That's the secret. So I wanted to make everybody know that just because, why are we doing what we're doing, basically? Why are we counting the Omer? What in the world does that have to do with anything? Because 7 times 7 is 49. Does anybody know what the gematria of Mem Tet is?
314.
Mem Tet.
Oh, Mem Tet is 49.
Mem Tet is 49. Right? Does anybody know what Mem Tet is?
It's the abbreviation for Metatron.
It's Metatron. You are reestablishing the whole Metatronic structure. Catriel, Enoch, Elijah, Sandalphon, the whole thing. You're in the middle of it oscillating. That's the spine. That's the whole operating system of God. So
And that's what Jacob was doing. The angels were ascending.
That's
descending.
why that's-
that was the oscillation.
Yes.
The angels ascending and descending.
Yes.
So you were right there.
you are
doing that
right
same.
there. You are in it. So why I'm saying this is when you're doing this, when you're counting the Omer, immerse yourself in the consciousness of what you're really doing. It's one thing just to read it. But it's one thing to know what you're doing when you're reading. Oh, I'm working on the Spirit of Hesed today. And tomorrow I'm going to work on the Sefirot of the Guvurot of Hesed. And then I'm going to do the Tiferet of Hesed. And you're touching each coordinate on a cosmic level. A level that doesn't exist here. This is stimulation from below. When you put it together down here, what happens up there? You see? And now you're part of the whole system. You're part of the whole chain.
By doing it, when you said by doing it, are you referring to
Reading the Omer.
Omer.
Yeah. When you're reading the Omer. Just the simple act of reading the Omer. But what I'm trying to tell you is the consciousness of what's going on behind reading the simple act of the Omer.
You saying the consciousness of that coordinate? If you're reading the Omer and then you meditate on that coordinate
Yes.
that day, then you've plugged in.
Yes.
And you're plugging the whole thing in.
Yes.
All the
And
way.
you know
to-
how much more powerful it is when you have the knowledge of what you're doing? Knowledge is the at. When you have the knowledge of what you're doing and you're putting these things together, you are affecting heaven. Because you're doing it for the sake of heaven. For the sake of Zah. You see what I'm saying? It's more than you can possibly visually or even consciously think that's going on. This is truly Adamic work.
Because what was at the end of it was the giving of the Torah.
Yeah. What is the Torah? The Torah is his name. The Torah is Malchut. 50 days later, on Pentecost, Shavuot, right?
Yeah.
On 50 days later, once they went through every coordinate in that dimension, they reached Mount Sinai. And he says, y'all stay down here at Malchut, and I'm going up here to Bina. And it said, and he walked through the midst of a cloud. He put on the garment, the Shekhinah, of the lower Shekhinah. When you have that garment on, you can go talk to the upper Shekhinah. Havayah says, come to the mountain and speak to Havayah. So how is Havayah telling Moses to come speak to Havayah? Why couldn't he do it there? Lower aspect, upper aspect. Lesser Metatron, greater Metatron. Sandalphon, a Catriel. It's all the same system. It's one thing. But when he's down here, his name is this. When he's here, his name is this. It's not two different things. You see? It's T-ball coach, MLB coach. He's the same guy. He just put on a different uniform. So, this is a big time of the year, and these feast days, and now that we have the knowledge of everything that's going on, and we've laid out some roadmaps, we can walk through some of this stuff and see it. Okay? Now, I'll just kind of briefly go over here a little bit. So I don't normally have an agenda. In other words, I don't try to use this as a pulpit to be preachy. But when people tell me that they don't believe in Kabbalah or believe in the, oh man, that's hocus pocus. We just Peshat. The Peshat don't exist if they ain't a sod.
That's true.
Okay? The secret explains the basic. All right? So don't in other words, don't sit here and tell me that you're not going to do the oral tradition, the oral this and the oral that and blah 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 blah, because you don't believe in all that stuff, and then you're going to read the Omer. That's just hypocritical. All right? So, it says, and they bore him up on the ark, meaning that they pushed the Shekhinah out, for the ark is the Shekhinah. and it was lifted up above the earth. That means that the Shekinah no longer resided in the world. Lower Shekinah went to her upper root. Okay? Just as we've been describing. Having removed herself from it, when she left the world, no one was left to protect it any longer, and judgment prevailed. But after the wicked were blotted out and removed from the world, the Shekinah returned to her place. And Rabbi Yessa and Rabbi Abba said, if it is so, why after the wicked who lived in the land of Israel during the destruction of the temple were blotted out, did the Shekinah not return to her place? Rabbi Abba answered, because after the destruction, the righteous of the world did not remain in the Holy Land, but left for Egypt, as described in the book of Jeremiah. Wherever they went in exile, the Shekinah followed and resided with them. If she did not leave them, even in a strange land, then certainly, had the people stayed in Israel, she would have returned to them after destruction. So, this is, I know why I want to read this. So, it is clear by now that the sin of the wicked caused the Shekinah to depart. One of the sins of one person who corrupts his way upon earth, as we have previously explained. This is filling the seed. Such a person should not see the face of the Shekinah, nor enter the place or the palace of the king. This is written, that they shall be blotted out from the earth, blotted out completely. Come and behold, when the time comes and the Holy One, blessed be He, resurrects the dead. Let me stop right there. There's nothing here but God. And if you watch TV and if you watch things, you will see the consciousness pushing itself in here. You can see God in everything. And we talked about it the other day. You had the shirt on, the zombie shirt. We're seeing all the zombie stuff going on all the time. All right? Well, when I saw that and I was going over this, it reminded me of that, so I thought we'd go over it today.
All right.
When He resurrects the dead, He shall make all the dead found in the countries other than the land of Israel rise and stand in their bodies. For one bone is from the left of the human body as it lies in the ground, and it is like a hump of dough, which the Holy One, blessed be He, shall rebuild the whole body. But He shall not restore their souls. That's why they're zombies. Until they are in the land of Israel. As it is stated, behold, I will open your graves and cause you to come out of your graves, my people, and I will bring you into the land of Israel. And they will roll through underground passages and come to the land of Israel. Next it is written, I will put my spirit in you and you shall live. Ezekiel 37:12 and 14. Only in the land of Israel will they receive their souls, except of those who have defiled themselves in the land, namely the generation of the flood. As for them, it has been declared, they shall be blotted out of the earth. Out of the earth means precisely they shall not rise during the resurrection of the dead, and shall not come to the land of Israel to receive their souls. Although some of the ancient sages differ in this opinion, claiming that they shall be resurrected, what has been said stands. For the term blotted out is a similar term of expression. Let them be blotted out of the book of the living forever means they shall never be resurrected. Now, he goes on to talk about that God destroyed every living substance at the flood. All right? Now, this means He removed all the angels and the ministers and the principalities that govern, not only animals and this but angelic properties as well. But I found this very interesting. It says, this is why the verse begins, and He erased all living substances. And then it continues, man, cattle, creeping things, birds of the heaven. They were destroyed from the earth. In only Noah was left. The word only signifies that nothing and nobody remained in the world except Noah and whoever was in the ark with him. Rabbi Yossi said, the word only indicates not even Noah's body was spared. for he was smitten by a lion and became limp, as was previously explained. Now, this brings us to a kasha question. It says that Noah was bit by a lion in the ark, and he walked with a limp. Who else do we know in Torah was struck in the hip? Jacob. It's the same story. Now, who struck Jacob in the hip?
Somehow.
The angel he wrestled with, whose name was Samael, who is the Nakash.
Mm-hmm.
Who is Adam fighting all the time? The Nakash. Who was Noah fighting?
Oh gosh.
And his term here is the lion. Because when the lion roars, he is Guvarot, not Hesed. Because the lion is always on the side of Hesed. Except when he roars and when he eats, he's Guvarot. That's the code.
Mm-hmm.
So, we see the same story of Jacob wrestling with the angel, Noah wrestling with the angel, but on a bigger plane than that, we see that Noah did not have a physical body because he had put on the ark. That's his Shekhinah. That's the garment of light. He's now back restored to Atzilut in the world of the Adamic structure. Of course he didn't have a body. You see what I'm saying? All right? So, lots of neat things going on in there. The last thing we'll cover, and then we'll discuss the movie. And Elohim remembered Noah. Elohim remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that were with him in the ark. Bereshit 6:1. Rabbi Chaya quoted the verse, "A prudent man foresees evil and hides himself." Psalms 22:3, saying that this verse refers to Noah, who hid himself in the ark and hid himself in it. We also talked about Moses and the people at Passover did the exact same thing, right? And he entered in the ark only when the waters forced him to go in to do so. So, as was previously explained, before he went into the ark, he saw the angel of death walking among the people and encircling them. Because Noah saw the angel of death, he entered the ark and hid. That was the water that he saw that forced him in. Thus it is written, a prudent man sees evil and hides himself. For sees evil refers to the angel of death, from whom he hid, as is written, from the waters of the flood. Or in other words, from the angel of death, whom he saw on or in the waters of the flood. I'm going to skip down. And he hid himself in the ark, and he remained in it all this time. What does it say afterwards? It says, and Elohim remembered Noah. So Rabbi Shimon said, come and behold, while judgment is executed, there is no remembrance. But after judgment has been executed, the wicked have been removed from the world. Then the word remembered is always mentioned. This is because when judgment prevails in the world, there is no supernal mating above, and the angel of destruction rages throughout the world. Thus, there is no positive remembrance, as remembrance means mating. Big deal. So, once the klipa is cut off, once the circumcision has happened, then Noah enters the ark. There's supernal mating. Once they went into the house, that was their supernal mating. Because that's the house. Right? All these things are going on. And so when they're in there, they're in their own little concealed world and everything else is destroyed. Then as stimulation from below, although it's a symbolic mating, right? Stimulation from below then God remembers them, and then when His presence comes and does all His stuff, and everything is renewed, that's remembering, that's mating heaven and earth. Everything's redone. Everything's redone. And guess what, guys? It's going to happen again, and again, and again, and again, and again. Halom haba 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 haba. Except the difference is, at the end, once Shabbat comes, once 6/7 comes, there will never be separation. Teresa, there's a chair in that room right there. Okay, you can sit right there. So the difference is, once 6/7 hits, 6/7, 6/7, 6/7. Once Shabbat hits, it's always Shabbat. So there'll never be a separation again. That's why that's why when we read our prayer, it says, "How worthy are we that you grant us with such a big favor? This is the reason we plead before you, that you will forgive and acquit all of our sins, that they should not bring separation between you and us." Because we are that ark thing. All right. So next week, what we're going to do as far as the Torah is we're going to talk about the altar that he built, why he built an altar, why he sacrificed, what's going on with the sacrifice. You know, why does he have to sacrifice an animal, etc., 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 etc. We're gonna get into that, and the kasha question is, if the sacrifice appeased God, then why didn't he do it before the flood? That's the kasha question. Well, yeah, but that's obvious. Yeah. So, anyway, we're going to get into that. So, without further ado, let's get into discussing the movie Noah, and let's discuss it from a Kabbalistic, in other words, what consciousness did it bring into the viewers that saw it that made them question it? Oh, I don't like that. That ain't real. That ain't this. That ain't that. Blah, 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 blah.
But none of them had a clue to what was going on with that first animal that ran out there that got killed.
Yeah.
And to me, my perception was it was alluding to the mixing of genetics that they were into, and the changing of things, of creation.
Yeah.
That generation was involved with, and this is one of the perverted creations that they made upon themselves, and that's why that particular animal, you couldn't tell if it was a bird or a lizard or a dog or what it was. The
Torah plainly says that they were crossing species. And how were they doing that? They were manipulating the name. You know, you can do anything if you know the name. It's the name. The name is the name of the game.
Yeah, and well, it's the formula of creation.
Yeah.
And you know it, so you can manipulate it, and you could alter.
Because we know this, because they make a golem. How do you make a golem? You use the name. So, if the sages can do it, you got to know the name. Formula. Anybody? Y'all discuss.
The land is rich with Zohar.
The land was rich with Zohar. Everybody was after the Zohar, which is, that's a huge thing. That's a huge Kabbalistic thing.
Right from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. And it was the light. It's what gave light to the ark. Inside the ark, it's what gave light to everything. It was the burning fire, you know? That's just unbelievably awesome, you know? That everybody was looking for Zohar. Right. And truly, really, everybody is looking for Zohar. They just don't know it. You know? They're all looking for an explanation to why. Who is God, what is God, and why is God, and what's he doing? Well, the Zohar.
Yeah, and the brilliance, the light, and the understanding, and the truth of it is what they're looking for. They're looking for that essence that is God.
Well, I was thinking it was interesting at the beginning of the movie that Noah and his family lived on a high place, isolated and alone from everyone else. Even Methuselah, I couldn't figure out why they were so separated so far from Methuselah. It seemed to me they
I
should.
thought it was awesome that Methuselah lived on a mountain in the crevice of a mountain. Because when, because we know that the mountain is Bina, and the crevice of the mountain is the Yesod of Bina, right, which is her Malchut, and that's where he was. I mean, to me, that's where I was going with that. Whether they meant it for that, probably not. But I thought that was a very. I was like, yeah, I could get something out of that, for sure. What else? Everybody say something. Everybody have a comment. There's no wrong questions or wrong answers. Just try to draw it out.
That the Creator is merciful and just.
And the fact that they used the term creator was pretty neat. They didn't call it God or anything, they called it creator. Because that's the aspect that was operating.
Well, Tubal-Cain made a remark that, we all know, I can't remember what the words he said, but they was implying that they all know what God said and how he does things, and but they were misusing it. Their knowledge, they were misusing it.
And there's the thing about it, there was nothing that Tubal-Cain said that was not true. Not one word. There was
But he
not
wasn't
one,
reverent toward
that
the Creator.
there's not one word that the Nakash said to Eve that was not true. And Tubal-Cain, although Tubal-Cain is not in the ark, we know that Og was basically connected to the ark. At least they had the aspect
That's
that
true.
there was something connected in the ark. They had the wrong character, which is fine, but they had something in the ark.
But I think they were going off his essence. I think his essence was there.
Exactly. The
essence,
that
that something was
evil
attached to the
essence
ark.
Was there, and the thing with the kids, okay, if this is Noah, all right, and these are his three sons, everything goes into Yesod. So him and his three sons go into the ark, but they are really not even born yet, because they're not that structure is not released until after. All right, and because the side of heavy Guvarot, that's the lion that bites Noah, that whole deal. But the fact that they had her pregnant on the ark is actually a truism, has nothing to do with one of the daughters being pregnant, but that everything the ark was a birth, was a womb. It was a womb. The whole thing was a womb. And so even though they made their own Hollywood twist on it, still I could see where you could go with that a little bit, But we know Ham had his issues on the ark, is all that. What else? Oh, I thought that when Noah had that seed, all right, and he planted the seed, and the trees grew, he said, "This is our ark." Well, the seed comes out of Yesod, and the seed is the ark.
Well,
Literally.
there was a story that Adam did bring the seeds of the shittim tree from Gan Eden, and this is where they planted that tree, and that tree brought the fruit, and the fruit was the takash.
Yeah.
And so there is a source that goes back to bringing that seed out.
And that's also where there's also a story where he had a limb or a branch of the original vine that he planted for his grapes. Well, of course, that's the goober oak, and so that he had from the garden, and that's just a part of the metaphoric aspect of the story, that he brought the same goober oak from the garden onto the ark. Well, you have to. Without it, there is no creation, But it's that same fractured fragment that is what caused all the fall to begin with. It was inevitable that it would do it again, but that's a necessary part, because anytime you have 2 by 2, one's Hesed, one goober oak. The goober oak has to be there. That's the wine.
I forgot to mention, I missed my point when I was saying that Noah and his wife lived high. So I was thinking maybe that represented a higher world that he lived in.
A higher personal
Higher-
elevation.
Yeah.
The fact that the fallen angels were there, and that they had concretized, when they came to
Oh
this.
yeah, the light that concretized,
That was that may have been the most Kabbalistic thing in the whole movie.
yeah, the concretized light
Concretized light was
is exactly what creation is, and that's
Yeah.
what this is, and that's what they were.
yeah, that was just really, really, really good.
But that's interesting how the light was released and redeemed, and went back up. I mean, it's probably one of the most difficult things that people going and seeing the movie could accept, that the fallen angels were restored and went back to heaven.
Yeah.
And that's, from comments that I've heard, that was the most, but it goes back to what Javier was saying, about, the mercifulness of God and the redemption in the world. And that was the whole thing right there, that the whole concretized earth and existence is redeemed and returned back, to life.
When the raindrop hit and the flower bloomed immediately, well, that's very Kabbalistic of how it's going to be in the Messianic world and the world to come, that things will be born daily. It will conceive and be born in one day. And the Zohar says like this, like one candle touching another. That's how everything will expand. And so growth happens immediately. And I think we read the deal last week about the tree bark. Trees will make wood that tastes like the fruit, because there's no klipa, there's no, and so I thought that was very a realistic thing. The start of the movie, I thought was absolutely great, because Noah had a vision, and a very clear vision. It wasn't like, hey, Noah, build the ark. It came off a vision, because he speaks to everybody in visions except for Moses. I speak to him face to face, like friend to friend. Which brings up a whole nother kasha. Okay, nobody can see his face and live, but he says he speaks to Moses face to face. It's another kasha question. But I thought that was good. I thought that the snake and the snake skin, wrapping it around like tefillin, was great. Let's see.
I mean, I didn't get the connection. Well, I mean, I got the connection with the tefillin and the snake, but then you go with the snake, it referring back to the nakash, and what was the, if there was any, the connection there between the takash and the tefillin, other than it just being like leather. I mean, skin or whatever that is.
I just think that the ability of them to put a tefillin object, no matter if it was snake skin or leather or twine or what, But the way he put it around his finger and wrapped it around his hand and went around his arm, I just thought, oh man, you know, to me, the semblance of what he was doing was more than, oh, it was snakeskin, you know.
Yeah, but there was also the semblance that had been passed down from father to father to father, all through that.
Yeah, yeah. Which
Which I don't know.
is
The
kind
original.
of the garment of Adam, you know. That's that. But it is actually the skin of the snake. To be honest with you, sort of.
Well, but there was an energy to it, and there was a light to it, because when he touched the children there at the end, there
It's kind
was
of a no-good. You know?
and it was a vessel, which is what I think the
Yeah,
feeling
Stacy
is.
says in the snake skin glowed. Yeah, the no-good there. She said good snake. You know? She's right.
Yeah, there was a good
Good
knockoff.
job, Stacy. Because the knockosh, there's two.
Yeah.
There's two. There's the sacred serpent, the holy serpent,
Uh-huh.
and the evil serpent. Good job, Stacy.
Yeah.
That is very good. That's that. And where do we see that again? The copper serpent with Moses in the desert. You look on the serpent and it heals you from the snakes that bite you.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's good. Good.
Hey, Mike,
Yeah.
did anybody catch the fact when him was looking for his wife and that mob had ripped the limb off of the living animal?
Yeah. We had the limb of the living animal in there.
But also the blood from the ground, because all of this death that was going on in that generation, you know, their blood, or the blood of these animals that they were destroying and eating, the blood of those animals were crying out to God. I think that's in the
Yeah.
in the book of
When-
Jasher.
When Noah walked through that camp,
Mm-hmm.
and it was his feet were sloshing through the blood.
What was shown but not stated was the very fact that there were no courts of justice. Noah, as in the movie his father was killed by the villain, he had no court of justice as he grew old enough to pursue courts of justice against his father's killer.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, like I said, it was shown visually, but never stated anything about justice and courts of justice. There was no one to turn to. All the land was evil.
Didn't Tubal Cain make?
All the cities were evil.
Mhm.
All the population was corrupted. So, and even as they, he said in the movie that it's in them.
Mm-hmm.
They have it in them, the ability to kill.
Yeah, but Tubal Cain made the statement that all the men was doing what they seemed right.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of like, you know, we do what we see right.
Yeah.
You know, what's right in our eyes,
Yeah.
and kind of made that connection to exactly what he's saying. There was no courts of justice. There was nothing to do to bring in this to establish justice.
And you know, one of the things was that you started to see axes and plows, and they had a hoe. She was digging in the garden, and because we know Kabbalistically that all farming tools were made during the time of Noah, and because Noah was a farmer, and really Noah's the one that came up with farming tools. Why? Why is that Kabbalistic?
Because of the Bible?
Because what's the curse?
Of the ground. Restoration of the ground.
You shall till the ground. You shall work the ground. That was Adam's curse. Who is Noah? The extension of Adam. That's why the Torah says that he invented the plows and the thises and the that's. And so then we see in the movie, they're planting a garden, she's got the hoe, and he's chopping with the axe. So, you know, seeing that, going back Kabbalistically, it really put into perspective that, all right, they're giving him a very Adamic thing, and we know that that God told them to be fruitful and multiply, and then as soon as Noah and them leave the ark, he tells them again, be fruitful and multiply. And Noah told his family, y'all be fruitful and multiply. I mean, that's not Kabbalistic, but it's very apropos in the story.
Because that was reconstituted after Noah when he got off. Didn't he?
Yes,
he told it to Adam, and then he told it to
Noah. Yes, and that was in there. You know, pretty good, I thought, because what that did is showed you it recreated creation.
Mm-hmm.
The same story once again. You know. What else? Y'all think so? I've got to go to the little boys' room. I'm about to pop.
Is that my phone, Teresa? Tell him we're at an intermission.
We're at intermission, John.
Oh, okay.
He's not going to understand what that is.
Where's the
You
popcorn?
told me to.
So did you get a chance to watch the
Our
movie?
teacher had to
Oh,
make
yeah.
a pit stop.
Yeah,
He'll
I
be
saw
back.
the movie. I went and saw it 2 nights ago. 2 nights ago? 3 nights ago. Went and saw it. Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah, I figured if you were discussing it today, it'd probably be a good idea to see it.
I like the fact that they, how they describe creation. How, he was telling them that with the little glowing Zohar rock deal, he said, I'm gonna tell you the story, the very first story I ever told you. Since like in the beginning, there was nothing. And then it visually shows how just nothingness, and all of a sudden there's like a big bang of lights. Or there's
How they
small-
created the whole thing. They
Right.
created it with a big bang. That was awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
That was
Describing
awesome.
the planet and stuff, and how we talk about it here many times. Like, what is time up there and
Mhm.
here? I thought that's something that they will never understand, because there's either you believe in evolution or in creation. How you're splitting it
Yeah.
again.
And what you have to do is you have to take evolution and creation and shove them together.
Exactly.
So what do you know about the director? And,
I don't know anything about the director.
I know he's Jewish.
Is he?
Yeah.
But he's supposed to have been an atheist, in his deal, and him and Russell Crowe are vegans, so it's all the eating the animal evil is coming out of that.
Well, and see, but that's actually the conscience of Adam, and because before the fall
He was a vegan.
he was a vegan, and where are we headed? Back to before the fall, because we know that the animals and everything were the garments of Adam. All right, so if you look at it from, yes, we know that after Noah's Ark, they were all permitted to eat meat. That's a true Torah statement.
Say that again.
Responsibly.
After
Right.
after Noah, after the ark, once they were released from the ark, we were permitted to eat meat. All right, but prior to the fall, it was vegan, and so Kabbalistically, if we're headed back to no fall, it will go back to that.
But the problem was, before the fall, they were eating the animals in the oral, They were eating the vegetation, and they ate up the vegetation, and then they ate up all the animals, and they were eating the animals. Now, in this, and the source that I'm trying to go back to is the book of Jasher, where this story was being told that that
well,
they ate up all that.
but the thing is, in Atzilut, what is eating?
And eating in Atzilut
Is just knowing.
knowing.
There's no eating. You know, and Adam knew his wife, and he ate from the tree. It's the same thing. So we have the consciousness, cerebral, the 3 C's: cerebral, culinary, and carnality. All right, but there it's all 3 the same thing.
Kind of separated out.
They're not separated out. So, did I give you all my Kasha question last week? What does birth look like in Atzilut?
yeah.
All right. Well, what does birth look like in Atzilut? What does mating look like in Atzilut? What does eating look like in Atzilut? It's the same Kasha question. What does it look like? So, it's you can say he ate from the tree. Yeah, okay. You know, on how many levels? And then we get, well, it was wheat. Well, it was grapes. Well, it was rye. Well, it was barley. Well, it was, you know, they list 5 because that's 5 things that Goover wrote. Those are the 5 grains of Goover wrote. So what are they doing? They're telling you the aspects. You know, they're doing this, they're doing that. You know, and so whenever you think of birth or union or eating or anything like that, what is a vegan there? What is an animal eater there? Well, a vegan and animal eater are really the same thing there because there's no difference in anything. You see? Because it's all a part of Adam. So he's knowing everything. He's knowing its essence. Because its essence is him. And, you know, that's what we hopefully get to look forward to. Where our consciousness are also intertwined that you know absolutely everything.
Well, you think the once that the animal eating is completed here is because Gilgal is complete?
Yes, yeah, it's a Gilgal thing, and it's an elevation thing. Everything's fallen, so we're picking it back up.
Yeah. And once all that is there and restored, and everything is back to one, then it won't,
Because
that process won't engage anymore.
You know, you have to eat animals here because, all right, the grass gets the nutrients from the minerals.
Mm-hmm.
Then the animals eat the grass, and then we eat the animals, and so you're eating every level. You're elevating because they can't elevate it. Now, only the animals who have rumens and stuff like that are you permitted to eat. Those are what's called kosher animals because they can elevate their food. Because they can't pray, they can't wash their hands. They can't do all this consciously, so they do it physically. So they eat their food and then they elevate it back up. Everything that elevates its food we can eat. Or that has a gizzard that grinds its food. So that's why those are the kosher animals, because they can elevate their food. And so then we eat those animals and elevate them. And so you're elevating the entirety of creation when you're eating. And so if you're eating unkosher animals or unclean animals, what you're doing is you're de-elevating, you're causing the fall. You're taking part in the fall. You're keeping everything here. You know? And so if you eat like an animal, you are an animal. You're viewed on that level.
Yeah, you're talking about the ravenous,
you know, You know,
The ravenous,
you're not eating for the sake of heaven, you're eating for the sake of receiving for self alone.
that's the whole thing. The limb of the living animal and the terminology behind it. You know, the heat, the passion, the you know, as the blood is still pumping and the meat is still hot with the blood, and it's not, you know, and it's physical, it's carnality, it's all of that. It's that ravenous appetite to fulfill the nephesh level of the soul, and to satisfy that for self alone, which is a basis of all sin.
Yeah, which is the basis of the fall. All right, what else? What else on the movie that was Kabbalistic?
Hey, Mike, got a question.
Yeah.
Not necessarily about the movie, but about the movie. Let's say that...
I can follow that in here.
Huh?
I can follow that in here.
Okay. On not the shot level, but on a higher level, if Noah was the ark, the ARC,
Yeah.
and his sons and their wives were within Noah,
Yes.
then on the Peshat it says, at least Peshat commentaries, it says that when Shem came out of the ark, he was 100 years old. So what is the significance of 100 coming out of the ark?
Going back through our studies in the Rondu, everything that was less than 100 was killed, because our Sphirot of Malchut is everything less than 100 that contains 1. 100,000.
Right?
I mean, yeah, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. Okay, and so it was saying it's basically meaning that they're on a different level, because we know that Noah had to be 600 years old before he entered the ark, because he had to complete the 6 Sphirot. All right, and so within that you have 3 100s, 100, 100, 100. We know that they were triplets. Now, one came out before the other one, etc., of course, but it was Hesed, Gevurot, Tiferet. You know? And so they're listed Shem, Ham, and Japheth, but I think Ham was the oldest, because Gevurot's first. And darkness was before light, and evening and morning one day. So, but they listed Shem the first. So, if you remember back from that deal that we taught on, it was they had to be 100, because anything less than 100 was destroyed, because that was talking about the level of a Sia.
Pretty good answer there, bud.
Okay, I just made that up. No, I didn't. But y'all remember when we went over that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But good question.
Well, the movie surprised me in presenting Noah as not understanding God's plan completely.
Yeah.
That it was sort of gradually revealed.
We know he knew everything, but it's also good to bring a human component into it too, for the Peshat level, you know, because let's face it, there's things in the Peshat story that Noah didn't do on a humanity scale. You know, he didn't pray for everybody. You know, he was just fine that it was just going to be him. You know, he didn't.
Yeah, I think there was the thing where they said that because Noah didn't pray for everybody and he went off and he isolated himself from the sin of the world, that he was then isolated in the world, and so the rest of the world was destroyed and he was saved. But
we know that
teaching.
Enosh and Enoch and Lamech and Methuselah and all of them tried to do it for years. You know, and then basically they tell Noah, hey, here's what's going to happen, here's what you got to do. You know, so, but God, even though Noah told him the great flood's coming, God let it rain for 40 days to give them time 40 days and 40 nights to give them time to repent. Had they repented, it would have just been a good rain.
A little more than they needed.
Maybe a little more than they needed, but all the tanks would be full and the farmers would quit griping.
No.
No,
They wouldn't.
no, they say it's too wet.
Too wet.
It's too wet. I can't get in the fields anymore. It's too wet, too dry, it's too windy. So, all right, what else? Y'all brainstorm. Think about some more cool things that were in the. I thought it was so cool. All the Nephilim lived in the land of the Tohu. You know, it was all regular land, and then when they walked into there, it was just black. It was kind of tohu, you know. Oh, we can't go in there. That's where the Nephilim live, in the land of the Tohu. Well, of course they live in the land of the Tohu. I thought that was awesome. They didn't say that, you know, per se, but it was implied big time. I thought that was neat. What else?
And they did the waters from below, which I was surprised.
The waters from below, fountains from below bursting forth. That was cool. That was really cool. That was really, really cool. Of course, they had the raven. They had the dove. Of course, we did the raven story last week. That's a neat story.
Well, I thought the ark itself was interesting because all my life, when I've seen images of the ark, it's curved,
It's a big boat.
big boat looking thing. You know.
I think I heard somewhere though that some of them naval engineer nerds said that ark would have floated and would have worked from the dimensions that were there. Or
Yeah.
Well, I saw Emma Watson on David Letterman, and she said that ark, that indoor ark and outdoor ark, and that one outdoors was built according to the dimensions given in the Bible. That was the actual size.
I think despite the inaccuracies of that particular movie, that it was biblical. Overall, on a very rudimentary, basic, shot level. And it was mentioned in the end about love and kindness, and evidently being fruitful and multiplying and replenishing the earth is also mentioned. So I think it was a biblical story if this wasn't so biblically accurate as we were expecting.
Well, I mean,
Well,
I-
what level were you expecting?
yeah. I mean, I wasn't expecting it to be biblically accurate to our standards anyway.
well,
And-
the thing is, it did have. I mean, it had the pashat in it. It had sod in it.
It had some stuff in it.
You know.
It did, but you know the consciousness of what it brought, and you know we could sit here and we could pick the thing apart on a Peshat level and just say, well, they didn't follow this, well, they didn't follow that, well, they didn't follow this. We know that he had 3 sons, and we know that they had 3 wives, and in the story, they were young, they weren't married, and you know, they didn't even have, you know, yeah, we could pick it apart. But I don't want to do that, because what I want to do is bring the light in, you know, bring the light of the story in. As far as
it was done the same way as the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments had the same. You could say this very same statement toward Cecil B. DeMille's 10 Commandments.
yeah,
You know, it would. You know, they can go back. It was not biblically correct, but then you could go back in and you could pick out the Kabbalistic elements in that movie as well.
oh yeah.
Well, I thought it was neat how the animals went to sleep.
Ooh, that
That
I
was
thought
cool.
that solved a lot of problems.
Cleaning up the bottom of the ark is one of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
Just put the woodpecker to sleep first.
huh?
The woodpecker was put to sleep
Yeah, the woodpecker was put to sleep first. Yeah, yeah, put that
How about
rascal.
the termites?
Get the termites and the woodpeckers.
Yeah, that was.
Well, it was, I think the movie does continue in their freshness the consciousness of God and Torah.
Yeah, it was good for this timing. You know, I think the timing was right, because if anything, the message is God's going to destroy the wicked. I mean, okay, that's the underlying theme. You know, God's the same as He was yesterday. He's not going to change His mind when it comes to these things. But anybody else before we close out, that there's really something that they.
Noah wasn't revengeful in the movie. He could have sought in the movie to go after his father's killer, but he didn't even. It wasn't a.
Yeah.
Something he was
Well, that's because he knew he was fixing to die. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the fact that there was no revenge.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't trying to be vengeful as an evil adversary would try to be vengeful on somebody else. And one last thing I want to say is that it ended, the very last scene, it ended in a rainbow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're gonna cover the rainbow extensively in this class coming up. And just know, the Peshat of the Sod is you're not allowed to look at the rainbow. That was the sin, basically, of Abel. That's what got Abel killed. See, Abel had to do something that warranted the death penalty.
That sure be it.
All right? So,
Because that's also the union with the Shekhinah.
that's the union with the Shekhinah. So, I've got a whole deal we're going to do on the rainbow, because there's way more to the rainbow. There's way more colors and way more spectrum. There's a lot going on within the rainbow. And so, if you see a rainbow, don't look at it. You know?
It's kind of like the sun. You just get a sense of it. And
Yeah,
turn
yeah,
away.
yeah. Oh, there's a rainbow. But what does everybody do? Oh, look at the rainbow. The other day when we buried my grandmother, it had been raining out there in East Texas. There's a big old double rainbow, and everybody was like, "Hey, Mike, look, look, look!" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay, it's nice, it's awesome." No, but you need to really see it. It's got two rainbows. Okay, fine. Let it be. Let them alone. Anybody else? We will. Oh, last but not least, Rabbi Baxt has, of course, I've always called him Rabbi Baxt, but he has been given one of the biggest stamps of approval from the biggest yeshiva of the biggest guy you can possibly get, and so what that means for this class is in the coming days, months, weeks, years, whatever, it's huge. Huge. Because we're his only mouthpiece.
No, I done been spouting off.
Yeah. We're his only mouthpiece. And so we have to stay with the formula. I have to stay back here in my little hole, but because that's how it operates. But the days are coming where it's gonna be big, 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 big. And because I think we have the right heart, what we're doing. We have the right intent with the Torah. We're not trying to do anything but help Israel and help God. And I think if you keep it right there, good things happen. You know, so We've done what's right. Rabbi Bax has done what's right. And Hashem is rewarding him for it, and ultimately us for it. It's big time. And so, with that, we will, in class, the Torah is amazing and the sages are amazing. We'll see y'all next week right here Wednesday, and we will get back into, let's see, I'll tell y'all where we're at. So if y'all want to read a little bit on your own to see if you can come up with what's happening here. The dove, right? Yeah. He waited another 7 days again. He sent out a dove from the ark, and the dove came back to him in the evening. And behold, an olive leaf it had plucked with its bill. And Noah knew that the waters had subsided upon the earth. He knew. What's knowing?
Duh.
Then he waited again another 7 days and sent forth a dove. And it did not return again. Then it came to pass in the 600th year, the first year, in the 6th month, of the first of the month. Formula.
The
Torah's amazing, Sage is amazing. We'll see y'all next week.